This is Dinosaur from Chance on the Bailgun US servers, and I'm here to show you how to play an Affliction Warlock for the Malygos 10-man, the first two phases. To start off, you'll see that I dropped the demonic circle right near the middle of the orb, so that when during the vortex occurs, you can come out of it and do damage. My starting cast sequence starts with a Shadow Bolt, followed by a Curse of Agony, and a Haunt. By that time, you already have Shadow Embrace stacked up 2 times. Continue that with Corruption, Unstable Affliction, Siphon Life, Immolate, and then continue back with Shadow Bolts. Keep an eye on your dots, and then renew them as they're up. This is where it all starts to get complicated. Unlike most casters, there's no really set sequence from A to B that you can do to get the most damage per second. Instead, you're now forced to watch your dot timers and make sure that whenever anything's up, that you're recasting it and that it will hit exactly when the other one ends. Right now you see Malygos going up to the air to start his vortex. Right now you should pop your life tap if you can, and prepare to have your warrior either cast Vigilance on you or your paladin with a Hand of Salvation, because you're going to get a lot of threat. You're able to portal out of the vortex by using your demonic circle, and then you continue DPS once on the ground. At this part, after the first vortex, there's going to start being those sparks that give you the buff for the spell power and attack, whatever. You're going to want to make sure that whenever they're brought in, if they're not stacked, hopefully they are, but not everybody's clean about that, you want to make sure that you're standing in the middle of it to get your buff. So what you might want to do is make sure you're doing your instant cast spells while you're running towards the nearest spark. It's extremely imperative that you try to get that spark buff as often as possible, because the key to Malygos is to get him down before 10 minutes are up, and that's when his enrage timer happens. Most of that damage will occur during the first phase. Keeping an eye on my dot timer, I'm being sure to renew everything that comes up whenever it's due. This is probably the most important and most difficult thing about Affliction Warlocks. A couple of things to note, however. With the Nightfall talent spec, which you should be in for Affliction, you have a very good chance of getting what's called a Shadow Trance every time your Corruption spell ticks. What this does, this gives you an instant cast Shadow Bolt. That in combination with the Glyph of Corruption, which basically does the same thing, can pretty much guarantee you're going to get about 3 or 4 instant Shadow Bolts every minute or so. The advantage of this being, of course, that with the instant cast Shadow Bolts, you can now feel free to life tap without having to worry too much about taking a giant DPS hit. To make things even better for you, using the Everlasting Affliction talent spec, which you should also be in, every time your Haunt spell is cast and ticks, which is another reason why you should always keep it up, your Corruption spell has a 100% chance to get renewed, so it doesn't have to be recast. Of course, there is a chance you're going to miss it here and there, but don't worry too much about it. All the current spells and castings I'm doing, by the way, are for version 3.0.8 that is currently out at the time of making this video. Hopefully in the 3.1 update, which they are currently working on, they are changing the Affliction Warlock spec, but hopefully not too much where it alters our game plan too much. I do know they're combining Siphon Life with the Corruption spells, and they are pretty much eliminating the Immolate from our rotations because it's going to share its damage with the Unstable Affliction. This could be good or bad, I have yet to determine. Let's hope for the best though. And here you see once again I have Demonic circled out of the vortex, and I am trying my best to position myself inside a spark to do even more damage, which of course makes the reduced threat of the Vigilance and Hand of Salvation even more important, because by the time Malygos lands, chances are very strong you're going to have full threat otherwise. Here we have the sparks stacking 2 times, so you get twice the buff, which is fantastic. Again, you want to make sure you try your best to keep this thing stacked up as much as possible, because the more damage you do to him during phase 1, the faster it'll be to knock him down in phase 3. At 50% health, Malygos will fly into the air to prepare for phase 2. At this point, it is impossible for you to take as any aggro, so you want to burn everything you can into him as fast as possible, hopefully keeping the spark buff the entire time. You can probably knock him down another 10 to 20% easily if you have the right kind of casting sequence going on here. Phase 2, you want to make sure you stay inside the magic bubbles as much as possible. Unfortunately for Affliction Warlocks, this is not really going to be the easiest part of the fight for them. All ranged, including Affliction Warlocks, should be focusing on the Scions, which are the mobs in the sky, and then they should be taking the discs as they fall, one by one, ranged first, and then melee. All ranged attacks should be focused on one Scion at a time in order to ensure it gets burned faster, so that a disc can fall within the first minute of the fight. The problem, of course, for Warlocks here is a lot of out-of-range issues, not to mention it's not really easy to cast spells while running from bubble to bubble, which is probably why when a disc falls you want to have the Warlocks and the Mages take the first ones that fall, because once in the air, the discs are flying mounts of which you can cast while moving. Here we see a disc is down. I'm going to take the first one, and then I'm going to try to focus my fire on the Scions in the air. I usually look for the one that has the least amount of health first, and then work from there one by one. In case you don't get a disc within the first minute or so, you need to be careful of Malygos' electric shock shot fire there, which pretty much will do 100% damage to you unless you're protected by the magic bubble. If you are on a disc, you don't have to worry about these because you won't be able to take any damage from that particular attack while floating above the ground. General common sense should tell you also that if the ground mobs are attacking a certain Scion in the air, you should maybe change your focus to make sure you're also attacking the same one. The faster you burn down the Scions, the more discs available, and the faster the whole fight will go. At this point in the fight, you should have at least 2 other people helping you in the air, so the Scions should pretty much be going down within 20 to 30 seconds each, which is pretty fast considering how much health they have. Once all the Scions are dead, and once all the ground mobs are dead, then phase 3 will start, and if you did everything's pretty right, you should have about 4 to 5 minutes to burn down Malygos in phase 3, which should definitely be more than enough. I hope this guide wasn't too confusing for you, and it helps you, gives you insight into how to deal with Affliction Warlocks in complicated fights as Malygos. If you have any questions, you can message my YouTube directly from here, and I'll be glad to answer them as soon as possible.